It's Christmas! But I can't help but feel that we've forgotten something.
We've forgotten the crackers.
No! We can't have Christmas without crackers! In light of the new Wallace and Gromit movie, Vengeance Most Fowl, this Christmas I'm taking a look at Wallace and Gromit in Project Zoo.
Just the ticket.
And who better to join me in talking about this game than the aardman man himself, George from HeadphonesUK.
Alright, my darlings, thanks for having me again.
The question is this cheese-loving duo's PS2 debut a delectable dish? Or does it just stink?
Look out, lad.
While not the first Aardman game ever, this game holds the distinction of being the very first official Wallace and Gromit game.
Oh, champion.
And being the first Wallace and Gromit project that wasn't written by Nick Park. And while all of these things are very significant and did help make the path for future projects that were a huge success, this one does feel like a bit of a rocky start. But let's examine it further, shall we?
Anything planned for today, Gromit?
The game begins in Wallace and Gromit's house, where it's revealed it's Archie's birthday. Who's Archie, you ask? Well, Archie is an adopted polar bear at West Wallaby Zoo, and the pair decide to go and see him.
Padlocked. The zoo should have opened an hour ago.
As soon as they get to the zoo, though, it turns out it's closed, as it's under new mangament? Whatever that means, I cannot fathom. Eventually, a van turns up, driven by a mysterious yet oddly familiar character. In the passenger seat is Archie, who throws the pair a note asking for help, and revealing that the culprit is none other than
Feathers McGraw.
Ah, I knew there was foul play.
Despite only appearing in one Wallace and Gromit film, or I guess two now, Feathers McGraw has basically become the big bad of the Wallace and Gromit franchise. He's made a surprisingly good impression on people despite not really being able to talk and not even really being able to emote with his eyebrows, since he doesn't have any, but he was always very expressive in the wrong trousers. Unfortunately, this is one of the places where this game falls down. The game's cutscenes are far from stellar. I'll give them credit, it was the first PS2 Aardman game, and translating stop motion to CGI is tricky, as Aardman themselves would discover a few years later. But the cutscenes do have some great gags in there.
The penguin is mightier than the sword.
That's even more of a groaner than one of your puns, Michael.
Hey! I will agree the cutscenes are not the best, but they're certainly not the worst either, especially considering the game's age. And I would argue they're expressive enough. Gromit's fourth wall breaking glances to the audience are amusing as always. One other thing that genuinely surprised me was that there's a widescreen mode. Sadly, I only realised this after recording the entire game, so you'll have to make do with looking at these beautiful decorated margins for the next half hour. Yeah, sorry about that.
This should get us inside the zoo, all right.
In order to sneak into the zoo, our heroes use a large penguin-shaped vessel to get past security. I guess you could call that a penguin suit. There must be a dress code. Once inside, Wallace realises the animals are missing.
To the jungle house, lad. And don't spare the horses!
In the first area, we find that the elephants are hard at work, while the baby elephants have been captured, and it's our job to rescue them.
Have a nose around for some more nuts, lad. I may be able to recycle this into something more useful.
Throughout the game, you collect nuts and bolts. Frequently, you encounter some pieces of machinery that can only be fixed if you have enough of these.
Shabby build, this.
And I have to say, this first example caught me by complete surprise.
May I present the telescopic banana gun?
Okie dokie. I don't know what I was expecting, but it certainly wasn't that. With the banana gun, you can fire bananas. I mean, obviously. Everything seems pretty simplistic at this stage, but I still think this game's tutorial could be a little clearer at times. For example, you're told,
press the triangle button to activate an information point.
This only works when you're stood directly in front of the information point, but I assumed you merely had to be in the vicinity of it, and so when I pressed triangle, this happened.
Gromit?
What the? Am I Wallace now? What's going on?
Alas, no. While it is great to hear Peter Sallis reprise his role as Wallace and do an amazing job like he always did, you don't actually play as him, which is a shame. Gromit is the only playable character, with Wallace acting as an assistant character in opening paths and making new gadgets for you. Whenever you encounter a device that needs fixing, you'll need to press triangle and whistle to get Wallace's attention.
Where are you, lad?
You'll also occasionally find tools laying around, and you'll need a certain number of these for Wallace to make a new device for you.
Go on, lad. Scarper.
This whistling technique reminds me of a similar move in The Curse of the Were-Rabbit.
Coming.
In fact, I see this game as a precursor to that game.
Can't beat a bit of teamwork, eh, lad?
There are several elements here that were tweaked and reused, and at times this game feels like a prototype.
While my experience with that game is limited, I agree that it blows this game out of the water. Its gameplay is way more satisfying, the level design is far better, and the fact that you can play as both characters is a big selling point.
Hello, Madam Winnebago.
Plus, the inclusion of more characters makes the game feel more memorable.
Hello, PC Max.
Annoyingly, Wallace also seems to be rather demanding in this game.
Come over here.
Alright, I'm coming, you obnoxious arse. He's rather stubborn and often will not do as he's told unless you've done a specific task first.
I think I'll stay put.
Even if it's just walking 2 feet in front of himself.
Not what I'd expected.
I'm right here, you big-eared bald barn pot!
Are you talking to me?
What? No, I meant Wallace!
Oh, I see. It is easy to get mixed up. These days the resemblance is rather uncanny.
Anyway, first of all, we need to rescue 3 baby elephants, which involves climbing this structure. This perhaps wouldn't be so bad if the controls weren't so slippery.
It's very easy to put a foot wrong. Literally.
There is a lot of platforming involved in this game, and the platforms are often extremely narrow, especially in the later stages. Holding R1 makes Gromit crouch, and pressing the X button while in this position makes him perform a high jump. A similar high jump move can also be performed by quickly changing direction and jumping at the same time, a technique that could also be used in Were-Rabbit. Interesting to note is that, with that game, they also altered the standard high jump to be performed after a sliding move rather than a crouch, which feels so much more fluid. This game's controls feel quite stilted by comparison, and there are also some unusual choices. Pressing the R1 button while moving makes Gromit perform a roll move, and he can also perform a rolling jump. These are fine, but bizarrely, the R1 button also makes Gromit do some kind of Matrix-style jump off the wall. I never really understood the point of this, and whenever I activated it, it was most often completely by accident.
Will you stop doing that? You're driving me up the wall!
Speaking of pointless moves, if you spin the left analog stick and press square, Gromit breakdances.
Go, Gromit, it's your birthday.
I personally think that while the controls aren't perfect, I'd say that they're just responsive enough that it feels good, but just loose enough to give you a challenge. I do quite like that. It makes you pay attention and really put effort into the game, and it does make it feel more satisfying when you do get it right.
Throughout the game, you will come across targets you can hit from afar. In this level, you can use the banana gun to complete Monty's monkey hunt. If you manage to hit all the monkey targets, you receive a gold coin. These coins are hidden throughout the levels, and collecting enough of them unlocks a new movie in the movie viewer in the main menu. I have to say, initially, these showed promise. One of the earliest movies you unlock is a making-of sequence, which is a cool bonus, but after that, the movies devolve into mere clips from the wrong trousers, which aren't nearly as interesting.
This isn't funny, Gromit.
I admit it is a little bit cheap, but it's better than Flushed Away, which just gave you pictures of the movie.
With all due respect, this was still more interesting than the actual game.
Okay, that's a fair point.
Now, these gold coins are either simply hidden in a level, or you need to complete some random puzzles to make them appear. Every time you collect one, this celebratory jingle plays. And yes, as you might expect, this does indeed get annoying. They are also given as rewards for completing hidden bonus levels. These are usually comprised of some kind of platforming challenge, a sliding challenge, or an obstacle course, and they're often found in tunnels or holes somewhere in the level. And no, I didn't bother collecting all of these coins. Considering how frustrating the controls are and how lackluster the rewards are, I didn't think finding all of these things was worth it. Also, I despise this camera. For one thing, it's too damn slow, and sometimes it dramatically changes perspective without warning. Case in point, this gold coin situated high up in the air was a pain to retrieve, as the camera wouldn't let me see where the coin was as I was jumping off the ledge.
Hold the square button and use the left analog stick to climb up and down ropes.
Not only was it irritating having to keep climbing to that same spot, but whenever I passed the information point, it would repeat the exact same instruction every single time.
Hold the square button, hold the square button, use the left analog stick, climb up and down ropes.
Can we turn this thing off? I'm reaching the end of my rope.
In case any of you were wondering, I did actually manage to obtain this coin eventually, ironically by swinging on the vine. You know, doing what the information point told me to do.
Y'all serious?
Yeah, I can just sense Gromit judging me for this. Ugh, I'm such a Wallace. After saving the first calf, the elephants show their gratitude by opening the way to the temple. It sure is nice to be appreciated, eh?
I hope they'll never forget what we did for them.
I mean, they are elephants. They don't forget anything.
Good point.
Once inside the temple, we find ourselves in darkness. Speaking of which, this game's lighting is not very good. It's far from the worst and nowhere near as bad as Flushed Away, but there are several areas that are near pitch black and hard to see.
Torches can be used to see in dark places.
Luckily, before long, we find the torch. This can be used to light our way, or at least make the dark areas, well, slightly less dark, I guess. You can change the weapon or item you're holding by holding the circle button and selecting it in the wheel in the bottom left corner.
The use of this weapon select is fine, but as you progress in the game, you unlock quite an arsenal, and yet there are some items you keep hold of that are rarely used again. This torch, for example, is only used in some very specific parts of the game, and otherwise just takes up space.
Ironically, I'd like to lose this torch to lighten the load.
Here we need to traverse a spider enclosure, where we're ambushed by...
Oh, I think I can guess.
Shall we say it together?
Oh, yes. A giant
Robot
spider!
penguins!
Wait, what?
Yeah, robot penguins. That's what my script says.
In a spider enclosure.
Yeah.
Yes, I was also genuinely expecting a giant spider to appear, but nope. There are no spiders whatsoever, which is kind of ironic because it would actually be completely logical for a giant spider to show up here. What a missed opportunity.
You raised my hopes and dashed them quite expertly, sir. Bravo!
The main enemies in this game are actually toy bots, the most prolific being clockwork cyber penguins, of which there are several types. There are also horrid hedgehogs and lunatic lice, both requiring unique methods of attack.
Look out, lad!
With the hedgehogs, you need to wait until their spines recede and punch the red vulnerable spot, while you need to perform a jump smash on the lice after you've knocked them onto their backs. Before long, we need to make our way to the end of a dangerous gauntlet.
Oh, there's an elephant in the room.
With all baby elephants rescued, we then find Feathers' secret mine entrance.
He's a penguin, not a minor bird.
Wallace then makes us some springy boots to infiltrate the mine.
Well, they appear to be functioning normally.
Once inside, Feathers appears with a rather familiar looking vehicle.
So that's where that thing got to.
The idea here is to simply avoid the drill when it charges at you, and then use the springy boots to perform your jump smash on it when it gets stuck. In addition, there are also plenty of robot penguins to take care of.
On that note, the main health collectible in the game is Jacob's Cream Crackers, which is actually quite clever.
They certainly haven't forgotten the crackers this time, have they?
I'm sure once they run out, they're feeling totally cream-crackered.
Ugh, now who's making bad puns?
Hey, it's infectious.
Countdown to D-Day? But D-Day was donkeys years ago.
The pair then follow Feathers into the mine, and this seems to go on for a while. Here the torch can be used to light explosives to unblock the way. The objective here is to find your way through the mine and save the baby beavers, eagerly awaiting rescue.
Will be happy.
The biggest problem I find with the game myself is the level design. Each level is focused around exploration, but the levels are really hard to navigate through and super easy to die in, so it makes the game really annoying and tedious.
Also, get used to hearing this music. You're going to be hearing it a lot.
Sometimes you'll need to change the points by firing bananas at overhead targets, and this is where my issues with the L1 targeting mode first came to light. The camera seems to abruptly jump when you try to aim, and this is especially annoying when you're standing on a moving minecart. In this level, you also collect, porridge. Yeah, it's kind of funny that you start finding all this porridge long before its use is even mentioned. Eventually it's revealed that if we have enough tools, Wallace can make us the porridge gun.
Now's your chance to be a serial killer.
I'm sure that'll make the evil penguin quaker in his boots.
One thing I loved was that when you gain access to the porridge gun, you get it from a trolley inside the mine that has tea and porridge on it.
You know, it is possible to be too northern.
The porridge gun can be simply used to clog up machinery or activate switches to get things working.
That sounds so simple.
Indeed, it's as plain as porridge.
On the subject of puns, as to be expected from any Aardman project, the background gags are brilliant. There's a tube sign in this level that says Red Leicester Square, which absolutely killed me.
Now it's even spread to the game. No one is safe from the pun contagion.
There's a few things that are direct references to the films. The porridge gun is of course adapted from A Close Shave, and later on you find the Metabix box from The Wrong Trousers. And I suppose even the turnip launcher that you unlock later in the game could be a reference to the turnip catapult from Chicken Run.
Oh, good grief! The turnip spotted.
A Chicken Run reference, huh? That's a turnip for the books.
I think we better move on before these jokes get any worse.
Roger that.
Before long, we locate Feathers once again.
It's Feathers with nowhere to run.
Here we get to use the gyrocopter, and this is seriously unforgiving. Fortunately, your porridge ammo is unlimited for this part, but the gyrocopter itself is ridiculously easy to destroy.
I hope Gromit doesn't get motion sickness, otherwise it'll be Wallace and vomit.
Ugh, that's disgusting.
You're not wrong, but most of this game's lighting is so bad you wouldn't be able to see it anyway.
Hey, look lad, the penguin has landed.
Once we finally catch up to Feathers, we fall for his trapdoor. Very, slowly.
Your trapdoor's stuck.
We wind up in a pit where the walls start closing in, the objective being to simply climb to the switch before our plasticine pals are pulverized.
Get me out of here!
We'd better be quick. I never was much good at clay modelling. They'll be squished like Play-Doh. Say, this is a bit dark for Wallace and Gromit.
I don't know, this is a franchise with a sheep-killing robot dog, a serial killer that gets eaten by crocodiles, and a penguin that threatens to shoot a dog like a Battersea Dogs Home ad. Wallace and Gromit is kinda messed up when you think about it.
In the next location, things get pretty heated as we're on the hunt for infant gorillas.
Or as Brian Blessed calls them,
Gorillas!
Jesus.
Fortunately, we get our hands on a fire extinguisher, which helps a great deal. Although unfortunately, it remains in your inventory for the rest of the game, even though you rarely ever need to use it again. With all the steam vents and flamethrowers, this level is rather annoying.
Congratulations, old friend.
Once we've freed the infant here, the gorillas decide to help us escape and overthrow the evil penguin's new order.
And, speaking of New Order, sounds like somebody's an 80s music fan.
This next section features some of the most annoying gameplay. It's awkward enough as it is, but it's especially awkward when you're timed. There's also this part in which you need to hit these targets to make some floating platforms appear in the correct order, the objective being to get yourself safely across the magma stream. Even when I managed to align the debris, I still almost died when jumping across. I'm not sure how Gromit survived this, but honestly, who cares?
That was a close shave.
Yeah, this game feels unpolished. It's so easy to die at times. These spiky compressors on the conveyor give you very little leeway. But oh, it gets worse. There were times pieces of equipment inexplicably crushed me. Hell, there were even times I died for no apparent reason whatsoever. Granted, these dodgy deaths aren't quite as bad as in some other games I've covered.
I'm looking at you, Yellow.
Oops. Uh-oh.
Feathers McGraw! There he is! When I think of poor little Archie in the icy clutches of that thing.
You know, with how much Wallace goes on about Archie in this game, I genuinely convinced myself that the little polar bear was secretly evil and in on the whole thing.
Hold it right there, you!
Seriously, I was fully anticipating a shocking twist at the very end of the game that Archie and Feathers had been conspiring together the entire time.
Mild spoiler alert, that is not what happens, and my contempt for the little bastard was completely unfounded. He's not remotely evil at all.
You might say he's the polar opposite.
Hey, that was my line.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Using the gyrocopter, we need to clog the vents with porridge to destroy the boiler.
Boy, Gromit.
In spite of the devastation this causes, Feathers once again makes his escape.
Not just Feathers, he's escaping. Hang on.
And we then need to rescue some baby pandas.
It's pandemonium in there.
This involves some typically terrible stealth as we need to sneak past the penguin's goons. Fortunately, we can use the Meterbix box to move around while their backs are turned, Metal Gear style. And despite the box moving positions, they're somehow none the wiser.
And if they do catch you, they shoot you on sight. Right, now. Jesus, that's a bit harsh.
I guess the idea is hide, or he'll have your hide.
Once we've collected enough tools in this level, we unlock the aforementioned turnip launcher. One major drawback of this weapon is that it's particularly heavy, and this led to some small issues. Since the weight of some of the weapons can slow you down, if I activated a timed switch, I would be in a hurry to press the circle button to put it away, and I'd be tilting the left analog stick at the same time to make Gromit run. Sometimes though, the game mistook this for me wanting to change my weapon, which was a little annoying. I really wish the item selection menu was a different button. Anyway, eventually there's a really random sequence in which you need to repeat a tune on a giant piano to pass through the security doors.
This gives a whole new meaning to piano keys. All we have to do is tickle the ivories and we're in.
Looking at that piano, I guess we know what happened to the daddy elephant.
Oh.
I do find it rather strange that Wallace doesn't seem to do anything besides when you call him over to fix things. Now, Gromit has always been silently presented as the wiser, more competent of the pair, but for Wallace to just stand there and wait for most of the game comes off as bizarre.
I think I'll stay put.
Like there are some parts such as here when the pair will be ambushed by enemies, and Wallace will just casually stand there without any sense of urgency. He won't even try to defend himself.
Hey,
I can't help but feel that these parts would feel more immersive if he wasn't there, as he genuinely doesn't do anything. It's more like you're his carer rather than his dog. This level also contains some extremely awkward maneuvering. There's one part in particular that requires you to shoot a turnip at a target and then roll under the narrow door as it swivels. They give you very little time or room to roll underneath it, and to make matters worse, this door can easily crush you. The amount of times I attempted this was insane, to the point where I genuinely wondered if I was doing it right. And then, when I finally got through... Oh no, not another one! Ah yes, finally! We're in the room! We made it, guys, we finally made it! Hey, what's this tunnel over here?
Oh no! And we're back down here again. Shoot!
You're right, it's a shoot.
Now is not the time for jokes, buddy. I'm cheesed off.
This, of course, means we have to do that awkward stuff with the turnip launcher all over again. It's supposed to be onions that make you cry, but in this case it's turnips.
Indeed, this task left me completely bamboozled. Get it? Bamboo? Because pandas?
Ugh.
Sorry.
After freeing all the pandas, we have to free the polar bears, and this part goes on for a while as well. The idea is to activate all 3 steam valves dotted around the place. This eventually activates the moving platform so we can reach the higher ground.
Get me down!
Well, get off it then, you moon-headed twit.
There's a hell of a lot of platforming in this level, and the awkward controls make it so easy to mistime your jumps. This is made so much worse by the presence of ice physics. Gromit slips and slides enough without this, thank you very much. What also makes it annoying is that there are parts that require you to jump on some ice blocks driven around by a polar bear worker. This is fine, but if you fall from the platforms above, you will have to wait for this polar bear to come full circle and very slowly make his way back to you. Come on, man, can't you pedal a bit faster?
No time like the present.
That'll come in handy.
One other amusing thing to note is that, despite having the necessary tools, Wallace refuses to fix the pedalo until you've found all 3 polar bear cubs.
2 ticks and I'll be there.
For some reason, I thought I'd already found them all, and was briefly bewildered as to why Wallace wouldn't cooperate. My frustration with his lack of action escalated to the point where I dragged him over to the last polar bear I saved and made him look at it.
I'm on my way.
See? Bear! This is a bear! See? It's a bear! Wallace Bear! Bear Wallace! I can't bear Wallace!
I save bear! You fix pedalo! Comprende?
At one point, I also tried to call him over to the pedalo, and as if Wallace wasn't wet enough, he just kind of submerged himself in the icy water and proceeded to stare at me rather ominously.
That's what I call a chilling stare.
Of course, it actually turned out that I was the one being stupid, as there was still one more polar bear cub to find. I say stupid, but in my defense, finding all the babies isn't always a requirement. For example, you don't actually need to find all 3 baby beavers in the mines. So why finding all the polar bear cubs is mandatory is a bit of a mystery to me.
We can't leave without freeing the little ones, lad.
Wallace is just obstinate for the sake of it, and his reluctance to comply just makes him come across as, well, a bit of a knob, really. He is genuinely utterly useless, and yet he gets all the credit for the inventions. I'm left doing all the odd jobs around here, but I swear I could probably do all the handiwork too.
Can't do any harm to give it a go.
What am I to you, a general dog's body?
Well, I mean, you do have a dog's body.
Yes, well, you know what I mean.
Eat turnips.
With the pedalo up and running, this leads into a boss battle that at first I thought was like the classic video game Asteroids. But with the giant submarine that appears and disappears that you have to fight, if anything, it's more like Sinistar. Although the boss you have to fight is nowhere near as terrifying.
I am the submarine. Beware, I live.
Not for long, Chuck. Near the end of the game, it's revealed that Feather's grand plan is to make a machine that can make diamonds, and he's been using the animals in the zoo to help make them.
So that's what he means by D-Day.
And I have to say, the part where Feathers hugs a diamond is one of the cutest things I've ever seen.
Oh, isn't he adorable for a thieving homicidal maniac?
This is the final part of the game which sees Gromit navigate the Diamond-O-Matic, avoiding all the obstacles and savouring the zebra foals as he goes.
Gromit, you help little Archie there. He seems to have a pressing engagement awaiting him.
Uh-huh. And I trust you're going to do absolutely nothing, Wallace. Why stop now?
This part of the game is so frustrating. You need to follow alongside Archie's platform and find ways to deactivate the hazards along the rail. Honestly, this is ridiculous. The game simply doesn't give you enough time to recognize what you need to do before the little polar bear is massacred. The platforming is at its most frustrating here, and the hazards are insane. There's this one part when you need to dodge some sharp blades attached to a massive rotating gear, and honestly, it is so awkward to get through unscathed.
This is pure chaos! It's like a zoo in here!
It is a zoo.
Oh yeah.
Eventually, we need to face Feathers in one final showdown. The idea is to avoid the giant robot penguin's attacks and simply hit it with the turnip launcher. This final boss is frankly horrible. It should be fairly easy, but I had to restart the level more than once due to a glitch. There are occasions when the penguin will deploy 2 enemies. But sometimes only one enemy actually appears. The problem is that the penguin will only make its next move and become vulnerable after both enemies have been eliminated. Since the other enemy was missing, the giant penguin just kinda stood there, wobbling like a weeble, and I couldn't inflict any damage. Anyway, as soon as the robot has been dealt with, Wallace arrives on the scene.
Cracking!
Perfect timing, Wallace, as always.
Oi, come back here, you!
After making his escape, Feathers is then confronted by the animals he captured, including one that has the decapitated head of one of the zookeepers.
Whoever wrote this game has some serious issues.
Yeah! Still, the animals made it out of this ordeal with their heads held high. And not just their own heads, apparently.
Cracking!
While this game is certainly not perfect, I've played a lot worse. Hell, considering what we played last time, I've even played worse aardman games. The controls are satisfying, the gadgets are fun, and the overall feel does reflect the franchise, and despite how frustrating it can be, the fact that it's not too long does help make it more tolerable. If the level design was much better and the game not intolerably dark in some spots, it might have been great. As it is, it's very middle of the road. I'd probably not be racing to play this one again, but I don't regret having played it in the first place. In many ways, this game walked so that Curse of the Were-Rabbit could fly.
Yeah, this game is very rough compared to The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. I personally wouldn't say that the level design itself is bad, but I have a very different opinion regarding the controls. They're not the worst, but they feel very slippery and imprecise. One thing I would agree on is that it's very average. The platforming is awkward, the targeting is awkward, and there are numerous glitches and inexplicable deaths. But on the plus side, this game does have character. The cutscenes are amusing, if a little rudimentary, and Peter Sallis' vocal performance carries the game.
We'll soon turn the turntables on the pesky peg.
There are barely any other voices throughout, and he sounds just as enthused as ever. It's just a shame that the gameplay itself leaves much to be desired. I wouldn't say it's explicitly bad, the allusions to the films are inspired.
Another blinking close shave.
But the lackluster gameplay makes it a rather mundane and frustrating experience overall.
The gameplay might not be amazing, but it's certainly not what I'd call foul. Thanks to George from HeadphonesUK for joining me.
My pleasure. Although I can't help think that we've forgotten somebody. Oh well, a happy Christmas to every single one of you.
Have a cracking Christmas, everyone. We reached 6,000 subs, guys. This thing was still worth every penny, you know. I wasn't actually gonna commemorate 6,000 subs. I was gonna wait until I got to 10,000, but considering this was a special anyway, I thought I'd just add this to the video as well. Thank you so much, everybody, for a great year. This has honestly been the most successful year of the channel so far, and I think the fact that this is the 3rd milestone video this year is proof of that. A huge thank you to my patrons.
3Spooky5Me, Anthony Gallagher, Eagle, Volico72, and Matthew Shaw.
An additional thank you to my free patrons.
Callum Cairns, Hannah Kingdon, Michael Shields, Dennis, GamerKid96, and Mood Faik.
And a massive thank you to my members as well.
3Spooky5Me, Leo Tucker, and Reunion.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, and all that jazz. I'll see you again soon. Or at least I intend to anyway. Bye-bye for now.
Hold the square button and use the left analog stick to climb up and down ropes.